I'm Matthew Huntington from Freesat. I'm the CTO there. And for those of you who don't know who Freesat is, we're a free-to-air satellite broadcaster here in the UK, and we exist to provide a free-to-air alternative to pay TV in satellite homes. And we're jointly owned by the BBC and ITV. And in the last 8 years, we've grown to carry over 200 broadcast channels, have just under 2 million homes, and giving us a weekly reach of 4 million viewers. Now, back in 2012, Freesat undertook a first major transformation to turn us into a user experience-based company when we launched a managed UI known as FreeTime. And for a retail-based operator, this was quite a bold move, but has given us much greater control over the quality of the products that we have out there than had been possible before. And then last year, we began our second major transformation, which was to be a data-led company. Now, what do I mean by being a data-led company? Well, I think the best example I have of that in our industry is Netflix. And they're a company who, even though a lot of their innovation may come from inspiration, it evaluates and measures that very carefully against well-defined performance indicators. And if you've spent any time with anyone from Netflix, you'll know just how driven they are by that. So what has Freesat done to begin that transformation, that data transformation? Well, back in December last year, we updated the software on our next generation boxes, the one I mentioned earlier within Managed User Experience, to report what they were doing, everything they were doing in real time back to our systems. And basically, all of the boxes connected to the internet of that generation are able to do that, over 70% of them. But also, we went out and got permission from the consumers to do that. This wasn't something hidden away in the terms and conditions. This is something that we clearly indicated to them. And today, we have over 70,000 boxes reporting, as I say, second by second on what they're doing. Now, this may not be that unusual for pay TV operators like Cablevision and others closer to home. It's actually really quite unique for a free-to-air operator to be doing that. And also, I think what's quite unique is the real-time nature of what we're doing. And the best way to explain that is really to start to show you some of it. The first thing I bring up here is Google Analytics. So we pump our data into Google Analytics, which is something we've been using for years to look at the performance of our website and our mobile applications. And what I've got here is the live data view as that comes into Google Analytics. And I can see, for instance, what screens those viewers are currently using live at the moment. I can also, it's a bit dangerous doing this, is go and see where they are and begin to see some of the skews in our audience base here towards the southeast. Now that's looking at live. Obviously, people who are familiar with Google Analytics know that you can do quite a lot of analysis with it. So for instance, I can show how people progress through our guide. I can understand the user journeys they're taking and see whether they're taking the user journeys I expect or doing something different.
Matthew, sorry, can I just ask one?
Yep.
This is your set-top or your app?
This is set-top box. This is set-top box data. This is consumers doing their live television and how they progress through our TV guide, our home screen, our TV guide, and beyond. You can also look at the events that they perform. And one thing we're tracking is actually how they use the remote control. And some of the very first insight we got from this was actually seeing, and you can see the raw numbers from over the last week, that people use the channel up button 50% more than they use the channel down button. Now, this doesn't mean that they're just scrolling through the 200 channels over the top and back round again, like Ham from Toy Story 2. What we can actually see is that they're using direct channel entry to actually return them back down the guide. So they do lots of channel up, and then they go back to the bottom of the guide, or the top, depending on which way you see it, using the direct number entry. And then actually there's a bit more than that with direct number entry. They're using it to jump to specific channels or particular genres in our guide. And the insight for us there is that logical channel numbers and people using channel numbers is still a very important part of television watching. And some of the drive to get rid of number keys from TV remote controls is probably a little early. So Google Analytics is giving us insight into how people are using our user experience and how we need to evolve and change that. But we want to look a bit beyond that. And critical to the success of free-to-air television is truly understanding audiences and how people are viewing programming. And with the number of devices that we have out there reporting, we're in a position where we can really slice and dice those audiences and look at what they're doing. And to help us do this, Freesat has partnered with TV Beat, who are a specialist in real-time audience attribution. And we announced our partnership with them earlier on this afternoon. And once again, one of the best ways to explain what we're doing with them is to show it to you. So what you can see here is their dashboard with our data showing live usage of, and I've picked Channel 4 here. So we can see Channel 4's data and how their audience share has been progressing while they're showing the Cheltenham Festival, a horse racing here in the UK. Now, that's a little hard to read, but if I switch to the waterfall chart here, I can more clearly see what is happening with that audience in real time. What you're looking at here is the last 30 minutes of viewing. Each of those blocks at the top is looking at a minute of viewing, and you'll see this screen updates every time a full minute is completed. And at the bottom, you've got a ticker tape of viewing on a second-by-second basis. If it's red, the audience has decreased. If it's blue, the audience has increased. And you can see here how, as the racing has progressed, how that audience has increased. Unfortunately, live at the moment on Channel 4, there isn't any program breaks for us to go and examine, but you can see that data coming in live. But you can imagine someone doing a live show, in fact, Cheltenham Horse Festival would be live, how they might be looking at this and altering their direction based on the feedback they can get. I mean, at the moment, a director and producer could see that they're losing audience on the hour, and what's causing that, though I can well believe that's an ad break that we're seeing there. Also, just shows other quick, I can show some real-time data here of what are the top channels, and I can see the top channels on our Freesat reporting boxes at the moment. On time. I can also look at those top channels over any period of time we've been collecting data on. This is the last week, and I can see the share of those channels. And one interesting thing that comes out of this, if you look carefully, it's a little bit small for you guys, is that our IP services are actually showing up in our top 30 channels. And we measure those IP services with the same metrics and same methodology as we're measuring the TV channels. Now, before you get too excited and you think that these IP channels are taking over the world, if you add together their share, they're still only making about 5% audience share overall. Be that iPlayer coming in as our 6th most popular channel, or Netflix down there at our 9th most popular channel. Now, we can look at that data and begin to look, as I said, at audiences and how those audiences evolve. So I've just brought up here a chart showing Channel 5 data from Monday. And if we look at that chart, you'll see there's two very distinctive things going on. It's a very clear audience here, neighbors at lunchtime, and then an X-File audience in the evening. And when I look at this, the question I start with is there an overlap? Are those neighbors audience, are they just keen on neighbors, or are they actually somehow have an affinity to Channel 5 and will watch Channel 5's biggest show of the week, which is X-Files? So what I can do is run a report, and this takes about 20 seconds to do, which is why I pre-canned it. I've put together the audience details here. The audience I want to analyze, which was 2.18% of the audience, which is people who watched Neighbours for more than 5 minutes during that day part at lunchtime. And I can see quite clearly here how many are retained for the X-Files. I've only retaining about 12%. of that audience. So I'm not retaining that audience, really. Of course, the next question that comes to mind is, well, what do they do? And what I can bring up here is that analysis that actually shows what they are actually watching. So I've got rid of my filter that was just Channel 5. I've now got all channels. And what we can see is this neighbour's audience watches Emmerdale, then it watches Coronation Street, then it watches EastEnders, then it watches Coronation Street, and then it pretty much switches the television off. And for those of you who are not familiar with UK television, basically they are soaps. And we can see that those neighbours watchers are soap fans, and wherever there is a soap, they will watch it. So that's what I have time to show you today. Obviously, there's a lot more analysis and insight that we can expose there, and hopefully have time in the future to do that.
Great, thanks, Betty. I'm just going to ask you, actually the same question I asked Ben, is given you've now got, obviously, that second-by-second analysis, and we use Barb here, have you done a comparison, again, against the Barb measurement versus your platform? Barb's 5,000 homes, I think.
5,000, in our case, we'd be comparing against 330 homes, so very similar to Cablevision. These are very similar numbers. It's not, at the moment, we're not really in a position to do that comparison because we're not really comparing apples with apples. We have a group of 70,000 reporting boxes, and we can look at their audience behaviour versus Barb, which have a very carefully balanced demographic panel. But if you do some casual analysis, if you were to do that, what you see is, of course, is with those numbers, even whether you're looking at the 5,000 overall panel or our 300, is you get this massive variation up and down. And what you find is our numbers just sail through the middle of those and just show you that we can take out the variation which is caused by the statistical anomalies. So they're very comparable numbers once you take that variation out.
Thank you. Thanks.